Imagine dawn breaking over a rocky hillside. A single groan, a rustle. Someone stirs in the dim glow of embers. If you've ever woken to the hum of your fan or the beeping of your alarm, you know how mornings feel. But back in the Paleolithic era, mornings began differently, yet maybe not so differently after all. If you enjoy these soothing stories that connect us to our ancient roots, feel free to like, share, and subscribe. Then let me know where you're listening from and what time it is for you. It's fascinating to see our global community winding down together. As daylight slowly seeps into the communal cave, the first movement comes from the fire, an ever-important, ever-vigilant companion. Just like you might check your phone or your coffee pot in the morning, these early parents would reach out to nudge embers back to life. The fire wasn't just warmth, it was protection against cold, insects, predators, and it anchored the whole household. No easily eased mornings here. If your fire was out, you were in for a tough day. Beside the fire, nestled on animal hides or woven grass mats, lie the rest of the family. Privacy? Forgotten. Everyone slept close together. Parents, children, and perhaps aunts, uncles, or a passing neighbor. You couldn't tiptoe out in solitude. Small groups survived by staying tight. And yet, in that closeness lived comfort. Long before parents reached for a smartphone, children woke up early, often the first ones up. They stirred, fuzzily turning over, searching for comfort, warmth, or something to nibble. In their half-sleep haze, they might find a piece of dried meat, a strip of hide, or maybe just a sibling to cuddle. No one eased into the day. The needs of the young demanded attention from the moment life stirred. Those invisible boundaries between kid space and adult space, they didn't exist. A toddler's cry meant a parent's swift response, just as an infant's gurgle drew soft coos from a brother or sister. This was family bonding in its purest, most unfiltered form. In modern life, you might check your phone notifications. In a Paleolithic cave, mornings meant checking and tending the fire. Every ember counted. A cold hearth meant cold bodies, sniffing winds, prowling beasts. Parents, and often children, took turns fanning embers, adding kindling, rubbing stones together to spark fresh flame. This task became a shared ritual, a lesson in responsibility, teamwork, and patience. Watching a parent coax life from embers taught kids early about cause and effect, and as the flame grew, so did the safety and assurance of another day. Once the fire was roaring, half-asleep hands brushed against stone tools, flint knives, scrapers, even small hand axes. These weren't toys, they were essential. To survive, you had to learn how to use, maintain, and respect them. Parents passed down these skills informally. Think of it as the first version of a family YouTube tutorial. A young child watched a parent sharpen a blade or fix a broken handle. Quiet demonstration, patient repetition. Today, that's like showing a kid how to tie shoelaces or turn on the kettle, but way more vital. These early moments help children build muscle memory, respect for tools, and awareness of danger. And the act of passing a tool from parent to child, a gentle rite of passage, reinforcing a sense of belonging and trust. After fire tending, tasks naturally fell into place. Parents began gathering water, a precious commodity. Children often tagged along, fetching small hand-sized stones to weigh down simple baskets, carrying tiny amounts of water, or collecting edible plants. This was hands-on education. Instead of sitting through a lesson, kids learned by being part of life's rhythm. They learned which plants were safe, how to spot animal tracks, how to stay close but not in danger. Sound familiar? It's like teaching a child to sort laundry. They learn best when included, not lectured. Back at the hearth, broken dried meat from last night's hunt or a handful of gathered berries might appear. There were no scheduled meals. You ate what was available when it was available. A child grabbing a chunk of meat in the early morning was no different than a modern kid raiding the fridge at dawn. The difference is that every scrap meant survival. Parents encourage sharing, even generosity, by breaking off small pieces, blowing warm breath across them to soften tough fibers, or offering milk, if available from domesticated animals like goats, in later periods. These moments, simple and repetitive, wove trust and support into the early family community. Whispered humming or softly voiced words added extra comfort. Could this be the birth of lullabies? Very likely. A parent gently rocking a child in one arm while feeding them with the other, softly singing or speaking, an ancient bonding ritual as old as mankind. Checking the fire in the morning was the same instinct as checking the thermostat or kettle today. No time to ease into the day is a sentiment any parent, ancient or modern, understands. And passing tools from hand to hand is not so different from teaching your child to hold a crayon, a spoon, or a steering wheel. Our instincts haven't changed. Our routines just look different. Understanding this helps us empathize. Those early parents, like us, cared deeply about their kids' safety, comfort, and readiness for the day. In the next part, we'll drift deeper into the morning, exploring how cavemen soothed sleepy toddlers, kept babies close to the fire, and responded to those first morning cries with hands-on care. Everything you think you know about ancient parenting, we'll explore how much really ties into our modern routines and where things diverged dramatically. If you're enjoying this slow journey through our shared past, consider liking, sharing, and subscribing. Then let me know where you're listening from and what time it is for you. It's fascinating to see our global community winding down together. As daylight slowly seeps into the communal cave, the first movement comes from the fire, an ever-important, ever-vigilant companion.
By mid-morning, the cave had fully come to life. The soft crackle of fire blended with the shuffling of feet, quiet voices, and the occasional sharp clink of stone on stone. Children, still bleary-eyed but now wide enough awake to get restless, began to roam the packed earth floor of their shelter. Some clung to a parent's side, others wandered just far enough to be watched but not caught. For Paleolithic parents, this stretch of time was delicate. Young ones needed engagement, but distractions could not outweigh survival. Babies were kept close, usually swaddled in animal hide slings tied across the chest or hip. These early carriers, made from soft fur or leather straps, kept infants warm, shielded, and constantly within reach of a soothing heartbeat. If the child cried, the parent rocked side to side, bounced gently on the balls of their feet, or hummed softly into the baby's ear. These sounds, wordless, instinctual, may have been among the first lullabies, not written, not passed down as lyrics, but felt, repeated, and shared across generations. While modern parents might hum pop tunes or nursery rhymes, these ancestors leaned on the rhythm of the body and the melody of survival. For toddlers, mornings were filled with imitation. Just as today's children copy adults by pretending to talk on phones or cook in toy kitchens, Paleolithic children mirrored the adults around them. They picked up sticks and pretended to dig, dragged small hides behind them, or mimicked sharpening stones. They were learning, not by instruction, but by shadowing. And parents, despite the demands of their daily grind, made space for this, knowing instinctively that imitation was a form of preparation. The cave itself played a role in parenting. Some corners were darker, quieter, ideal for rest or feeding. Other parts, near the entrance where light streamed in, were more active zones, where tools were kept, drying meat hung overhead, and group tasks were carried out. Parents naturally kept children near these inner circles of activity, close enough to learn, far enough to stay safe. And all around, the community kept watch. Parenting wasn't isolated, it was a group effort. An aunt might scoop up a crying toddler. An older sibling might hand a stone toy to a younger one. Even a neighbor might offer food or a hide to wrap a chilled child. Modern life often emphasizes nuclear families, but Paleolithic life leaned on the strength of the group. If you've ever felt the relief of a friend stepping in when your toddler throws a tantrum in public, you've felt that ancient village instinct. Hunger, as always, remained a constant hum beneath the day's rhythm. Children's cries often meant more than discomfort. They meant need. Mothers and caretakers understood this without hesitation. They responded with what they had. For infants, breast milk. For older children, scraps of meat, handfuls of nuts, or pieces of fruit carefully softened between their own teeth. This pre-chewing practice, while odd to modern minds, was practical, nurturing, and deeply connective. Feeding wasn't just nutrition, it was a gesture of protection. Modern parents might mash food with forks or blenders. Paleolithic parents did it mouth to mouth with the same love, minus the tools. And when hunger was truly scarce, the community made decisions. Older children might be taught to wait, to share, and in those lessons they learned about patience, sacrifice, and survival, not as abstract values, but as daily practice. Discipline, too, existed, but not through harsh punishment or raised voices. Most early teaching came through consequence. A child who wandered too close to the fire got gently pulled back, their hand swatted away from danger, their movement redirected. A warning tone, a firm grip, a guiding hand. This was discipline born from necessity, not frustration. Children learned quickly that pain followed danger and comfort followed caution. It was instinctively reinforced by the world around them. Parents didn't need to shout. Nature did the talking. Still, affection was everywhere. Touch was constant, hands brushing over heads, arms pulling children close, fingers rubbing warmth into small, dirty feet. Affection wasn't scheduled or dramatic. It flowed naturally, quietly. Like now when a child sneaks into their parents' bed in the early morning hours, simply seeking closeness. Then it was no different. A child curling into a parent's side, soot-smudged cheeks pressed against fur, seeking safety and warmth. And there were games too, simple ones. Peekaboo around a stone pillar, tossing a stick and watching who could find it, tapping out rhythms on a flat stone. These were early forms of play, nonverbal, physical, repetitive. And if that reminds you of banging pots in the kitchen or giggling when a scarf reappears over someone's head, that's the connection. The instincts haven't changed. Our ancestors knew that play was learning, that touch was comfort, and that presence mattered more than perfection. As the sun climbed higher and morning edged toward midday, the parenting dance shifted once again. The cave began to empty as adults readied for tasks beyond the home, hunting, gathering, tracking, and trading. Children, too, had their own rhythms to follow, their own places to be. In the next part, we'll follow these young ones into their world, outside the cave, into the forest, across riverbanks, and we'll discover how they learned the land, not through lectures, but through footsteps. If you're enjoying this story, consider liking, sharing, and subscribing, and let me know in the comments where you're listening from and what time it is. We may be scattered across the world, but for a few moments, we share this ancient quiet together.
The sun now rides higher in the sky, casting longer beams of light through the cave's opening, gently pushing back the shadows. It's that soft, mid-morning lull, when the initial flurry of waking and warming is over, but the full rhythm of the day hasn't quite taken hold. This is when the children begin to stretch their world beyond the hearth, stepping cautiously into the outer spaces where learning and life truly blend. Imagine a small child, no older than 5, crouching near the edge of the cave's light, watching the adults prepare to leave. They're sharpening spears, adjusting slings, or checking the state of their worn leather shoes. And that child, wide-eyed and still a little groggy, is absorbing everything. Not through lectures, not through tasks, but through presence. Much like how a modern toddler might quietly watch a parent get dressed for work or lace up shoes before a morning jog, these cave children learned by being near the action, listening, mimicking, waiting for their chance. Soon enough, the group would split. Hunters moved outward in quiet, practiced lines, reading the signs left behind by prey. Gatherers drifted in smaller groups toward familiar trails, where nuts, fruits, roots, or edible greens might be found. But what of the children too young for real work, yet old enough to wander? They didn't stay idle. Their world stretched into the surrounding landscape, small, manageable patches of earth and stone that served as both playground and classroom. Under the light supervision of a sibling, grandparent, or any nearby adult, they began the slow work of understanding their environment. Their tasks were small but purposeful, stacking stones, imitating the movements of digging sticks, tracing shapes in the dirt, or poking gently at insects beneath leaves. These weren't just distractions, they were rehearsals for the movements that one day perform with purpose. Think of it like a child today pretending to write on paper, or using a toy hammer on a plastic nail. The tools were different, but the impulse to learn by doing was the same. In quieter moments, these children would also practice sounds, repeating words they heard from adults, simple calls, warnings, or names of familiar objects. This was early language in motion, shaped not by structured grammar, but by rhythm, repetition, and connection. A child hearing the same word every time food was handed to them would eventually mimic it, not for formality, but for need. Food, water, come, stay. Language wasn't taught, it was absorbed, soaked into them like warmth from the fire. You might compare this to how toddlers today pick up on the word snack or outside long before they fully grasp sentence structure. We underestimate how deeply children learn from atmosphere, and Paleolithic kids lived in a world saturated with meaning. Older children, meanwhile, were often given their own responsibilities, watching a sibling, fetching water, helping carry small items and hide pouches. These tasks weren't framed as chores, they were steps toward adulthood, granted with pride. When a child was trusted to help, they felt it, they knew. And that sensation, that quiet nod of "you're ready," is something we still strive to give young people today. Even now, the first time a child is allowed to cross a street alone or stay home without a sitter, there's a sense of earned independence. It's timeless, and it began here, in these small acts, thousands of years ago. Mistakes happened, of course. A child would wander too far, trip, touch something sharp, cry out in panic. But the response wasn't panic in return, it was guidance. Someone would come, kneel, inspect the wound, maybe rub a leaf against a scrape, or simply pick the child up and walk slowly back to the fire. Pain was part of learning, and so was comfort. Even now, when a child falls and looks up, scanning a parent's face to decide how serious it is, do I cry? Do I laugh? Do I shake it off? That reaction is ancient. That need for reassurance in a moment of vulnerability, it hasn't changed at all. Meanwhile, the cave, left behind in the morning, never fully emptied. Someone always stayed behind. A mother with a newborn, an elder too stiff to walk far, an injured uncle whose limp was still healing. These figures, though less mobile, were no less important. They offered stories, held babies, kept the fire alive, and quietly watched the world move around them. And the children watched them in return. In their quietness, they carried wisdom. Children saw what care looked like, not as a task, but as a state of being, holding, humming, reassuring, and while they may not have understood the meaning then, it lived in them, a rhythm, an emotional memory, one that would echo back years later when they themselves bent to comfort their own child. The sun kept rising, shadows shortened. Somewhere in the brush, a child's laughter mixed with the rustle of leaves.
Nearby, another squatted beside a puddle, fascinated by their reflection, dipping fingers into the ripples. There were no toys here, but there was no boredom either. The world itself was the toy, the lesson, the lullaby. In the next part, we'll follow the hunters and gatherers as they move through forests and across open fields and see what it meant to parent from a distance, to prepare children not just for the cave, but for the outside world and all its unknowns. If you're still here, breathing a little slower, eyes growing heavier.
The wind outside the cave speaks in whispers now, a soft hush through the trees, carrying the scent of pine, earth, and distant animals. The adults have gone, quietly, carefully, like shadows stitched into the morning light. They've left behind echoes, the creak of leather, the click of flint, the memory of a quiet nod. And the children, still tucked in the folds of the cave's breath, are not forgotten. They are watched. They are held. Not always in arms, but in thought, in custom, in quiet understanding. Today, they will learn by silence, by shadow, by small things. A beetle crawling over a stone, the way smoke curls before it vanishes, the rhythm of a hawk's cry fading into blue. These are their first books, their teachers without words. A child's hand, still chubby, grips a stick and draws in the dirt, circles, lines, a hesitant spiral. Not for art, not for praise, just for being, just for wonder. And across the way, another child crouches to watch a caterpillar fold itself into green. The patience of this moment, the slowness, it is ancient, it is sacred. Somewhere in that stillness, an elder hums, a low rhythmic note, broken only to wet cracked lips or turn a burning stick. Her voice isn't loud, and it doesn't ask to be heard, but the children do hear it, soft as dust, steady as heartbeat. It tells no story in words, yet it holds centuries of memory. Maybe it's the sound of fire meeting cold air. Maybe it's the sound of grief, or joy, or hunger softened by love. The children don't ask. They listen, and somehow they understand. Midday creeps in like a cat, warm-bellied and slow. The cave breathes it in. The rocks grow warm under the sun, and tiny toes press against them, testing the heat, the comfort, the world. There is no school bell here, no circle time, but the learning never stops. They taste bark. They stack bones. They watch a lizard dart and vanish. And in those moments, they begin to shape themselves, not just bodies, but minds. They ask without speaking, what is soft? What is sharp? What runs? What waits? The baby stirs in the sling, eyes half closed, not ready for the world, but drawn to the hum of it. A hand reaches, tiny fingers curling around a leather strap. The mother doesn't look, she just breathes, sways. The rhythm between them is wordless, but deep. You've seen this maybe, a subway sway, a grocery aisle rock, a modern lullaby sung with hips and breath, not voice. That's where it comes from, right here, this cave, this fire, this moment. A sibling breaks a twig. It snaps with the sound of clean air. He laughs, not a loud laugh, a bubbling one, like water finding its way through stone. He holds it up like treasure. No one tells him it's nothing. No one corrects the joy, because here everything teaches, everything matters. A broken twig could be a bird's leg, a new tool, a sound to mimic in a dream. That's how they learn, not what to think, but how to notice. The elder stands slowly. Her knees protest, but she moves with grace. She steps out into the light and lifts her face to the sky. Her eyes close. The wind touches her and keeps going. She listens, not just with ears,
but with the bones of her skull, the ache in her jaw, the history behind her eyes. What does she hear? A storm, maybe? Or a shift in the trees? Or the footfall of someone returning? She hums again, not a song, just a thread of sound, a memory in motion. And the children again grow still. Not afraid, just aware. The world has changed slightly. Something is coming. A lesson, a guest, a shadow. They don't know yet, but they're ready to find out. Tomorrow they might chase rabbits or climb trees or scrape their knees raw. But for now they wait, with the fire, with each other, with breath slow and eyes open. And somewhere deep in the bones of the earth.
The sun leans westward now, its light beginning to stretch long across the ground, painting gold over stone and hide. The air grows softer, less sharp, like a blanket laid gently across the land. And in this hour the world returns. Footsteps, light at first, pat the earth like heartbeats, steady, worn, deliberate. The hunters are coming back. Their voices are low, not yet celebratory, not yet grieving, just full of the weight of the day. The children look up, some from their dirt drawings, some from dozing, and a few with cautious smiles, hoping, always hoping, that something good has followed them home. The adults carry stories now, on their shoulders, in their eyes, tucked between bloodied hides and bundled roots. Sometimes those stories are heavy with meat, the promise of a full stomach and warmth. Other times they are quieter, lighter, but no less meaningful. A new path found, a new sound heard, a track noticed where none should be. The children don't ask, they watch. Every gesture, how a spear is dropped, how a brow is wiped, how silence lingers, teaches them whether today was kind or cruel. One child, small and still sticky with berry juice, runs toward a familiar figure. No fear, just a sudden burst of movement. She is scooped up, spun once, and kissed without words. The motion is instinct, automatic. It says, I came back. I see you. You are mine. In modern life, this moment might happen in a hallway, at a doorway, after a long day's work. Daddy's home, someone might say. Or maybe nothing is said, just arms and warmth and presence. It is the same here, though no one speaks it. They live it. Near the fire, new flames are coaxed into life. The day's finds are laid out. Leaves are sorted, skins unrolled, bones inspected. And the children, hovering close, lean in. Their eyes follow every movement. They see the way a knife is drawn along a hide, the way a berry is crushed to test for poison or sweetness. They ask questions without words. And they get answers, not in language, but in rhythm, in the quiet precision of adult hands. It is enough. The meal begins slowly. It isn't feast or famine. It is simply what there is. A child is handed the softest part of the meat. Another is given roasted root, still hot, and watches it steam in the cooling air. No one eats alone. Pieces are torn, passed, offered. There is no portion too small to share. A bite becomes two. A leaf becomes a plate. The fire crackles louder now, feeding on the dark. You might think of this as a family dinner. No table, no plates, no silverware. But the same rules live here. Kindness, patience, feeding the smallest first. The parents glance at each other over the firelight. Tired, yes, but together, still whole, still here. And their children watching learn what survival looks like, not just in the chase, but in the return. Not just in the fire, but in the passing of food, the way laughter flickers even when the hunt came back light. Later the elder begins her hum again. This time the notes stretch longer. Children curl near the embers, bellies full or near enough. Some play with bones, stacking them, tapping rhythms. Others simply lie down, blinking slowly. The sky outside is beginning to turn violet. One by one, stories begin. Not in the way we tell them now, not from books or screens, but from memory, motion, mimicry. A child reenacts a deer chase, hopping and stumbling in slow, dreamlike movements. The others watch, giggle, correct. That's not how it ran, one whispers. It went this way. You've seen this too. When children take turns retelling a day at school. When siblings argue over who remembers something right. Memory, performance, identity. They've always been braided together. Even here, where language is still young, the desire to share a day, to be seen in the telling, is alive. As the fire softens, the air fills with sighs. One child sleeps upright, head leaning against a shoulder not their own. Another lies on a woven mat of reeds and grass, tracing nothing in the air. No one calls for bedtime. No one commands quiet. The night simply arrives, and the children move with it, slowly, naturally, as if darkness were not something to fear, but a signal to rest. And as the cave fills once again with silence, low breathing, and the occasional shift of limbs, the parents exhale too. The day is done. The children are safe. And tomorrow, when the fire is cold and the sky turns pale again, they'll rise once more, just as their own parents once did, just as we do now. The story continues, not in words, but in the way the fire is laid, the way a child is held, the way one generation watches the next begin again.
The sky outside has deepened into ink, stars flickering through gaps in the stone roof and between the branches just beyond the mouth of the cave. The air has grown colder, biting softly at exposed toes and fingers, nudging families closer to the fire. In the quiet hum of sleep, there are still sounds. Breath shared between bodies, the shift of a hide, the crack of a log surrendering to flame. The world hasn't stopped, it's just slowed. And in that slowing, something ancient happens. Dreams begin. Children twitch in their sleep, legs kicking softly, hands curling as if catching invisible things. Perhaps they dream of the chase, of rivers running loud and fast, or the bright flash of a fish darting beneath ice. Or maybe they dream of fear, something just outside the firelight, something unseen but known. Parents, too, doze lightly, one ear still tuned to the breath of their young, to the subtle rhythm of safety or danger. Even in sleep, parenting doesn't end, it only changes form. A shifting shoulder becomes a pillow. A hand, half-conscious, tugs a fur blanket higher over a child's chest. And outside, the wind whistles a lullaby, older than words. Somewhere in the dark, a baby wakes with a small, breathless cry. Not loud, but sharp, a sound that cuts through the quiet and calls for touch. Instantly, a hand finds the sling, the tiny ribs rising fast, the head turning blindly. There's no panic, only presence. The mother, or maybe it's a sister or a father, lifts the child without thought. The movement is practiced, ancient, deeply human. The child is rocked slowly, rhythmically, chest to chest, heartbeat to heartbeat. And just like that, the world narrows again to warmth, scent, and comfort. You might recognize this. A baby crying in the night, a body rising half asleep, responding not with frustration, but with instinct. It's in every home, every culture, every generation. It's a thread that ties us to them, those cave-dwelling parents whose nights were as fragmented and sleepless as our own. They didn't have night lights or pacifiers, but they had arms. They had song. They had fire. The flames have burned low now, down to a soft bed of glowing coals. It's the hour where stories rest in bones, where memory floats just beneath dreaming. The elder stirs but doesn't rise. Her eyes blink open, cloudy, catching the shimmer of heat in the dark. She listens, not for danger, not tonight, but for the breathing of children, the murmurs of sleep. She has heard it for decades.
She remembers her own children's small hands. She remembers the fear, the joy, the ache, the letting go. She hums again, not for the others, but for herself. A note without shape, a tune without name. Just a reminder to the night that she is still here, that this cave still holds life, that the past is not lost. It is living in these bodies, these dreams, this fire. Her voice is soft enough not to wake anyone, but one child, half between sleep and waking, hears it. Not with ears, but with something older. The sound threads into their dream, weaving warmth through shadow. That's what lullabies were meant to do. Not entertain, but protect. Not teach, but tether. And as the fire sighs and the stars blink overhead, the cave becomes a cradle. Time forgets itself. There are no clocks here, no alarms, only need, only love, and the long, slow breathing of a people doing their best in the dark. Tomorrow will bring new steps, new scrapes, new laughter, but tonight is for rest, for remembering that children have always stirred in the night, that parents have always reached for them, and that love, even then, was made of soft hands, tired arms, and the steady promise of returning light.
The fire has nearly given up its light, its glow now just a soft breath beneath a fragile dome of ash. In the half-dark, shadows stretch long and low across the cave walls, flickering with each tiny breeze that slips in from outside. The night is deep, yet not silent. There are sighs, the shifting of limbs, the low snore of someone old, and somewhere a child murmuring in a dream. And beyond the cave, past stone and leaf, the distant cry of an animal pierces the quiet. Something hunted or hunting, but no one stirs, not truly. Because here, in this circle of warmth and skin and memory, there is safety. Thin, maybe, fragile, but real. The children lie scattered like seeds, arms flung over siblings, feet tangled in furs, one cheek pressed to the packed earth. A few are still awake, eyes half-lidded, tracing patterns in the air, or listening to the wind find its way through branches. The cave ceiling above them, low and solid, carries stories from earlier, faint echoes of laughter, the tap of stone, the scrape of hide over stone. The place remembers, even when the people sleep. Parents lie close, not always next to their own, but near enough. You could look across the space and count love in inches. A hand resting on a shoulder, a back curved around a smaller body, and the rhythm, so slow now like breath spoken in stone, remains constant. Each inhale, each exhale, a kind of promise. We are here. We are still here. There's a rhythm to the way the night lives in the cave, not in stories now, or song, but in presence. This is the hour of listening, of feeling. A child twitches and turns. No one wakes fully, but someone shifts beside them, tucks a hide in closer, hums a single low note, half instinct, half memory. It's not a song, it's a gesture, the kind that says, sleep again. You are not alone. And this closeness, this near-constant touch, is the cave's answer to fear. No door, no lock, but a circle of bodies warmed by shared breath and time. Today we call it co-sleeping. Then it was survival. You didn't leave your children to cry in another room. There was no other room. Their cries were your call to stillness, to motion, to comfort. A child wakes suddenly, startled. Maybe it was a dream, maybe the wind changed. Their eyes flash wide in the dim glow of coal. A hand finds them almost immediately, not necessarily their mother's, but someone's. Fingers curl around tiny knuckles. A low sound, not quite words, settles the moment. There is no panic, no scolding, just presence. The child settles again, as if nothing had happened, because really, nothing did. The world was still turning, the fire was still breathing, and love, though half asleep, had reached out and answered.
That kind of parenting, the quiet kind, the constant kind, doesn't always show in stories. We hear about the hunts, the discoveries, the battles, but the real shape of a society lies in its nighttime habits. Who wakes for the child? Who gives up warmth to comfort a shivering one? Who hums the tune that no one taught them because it was never meant to be taught, only remembered? Outside the cave, frost gathers on leaves. The earth tightens. A few stars blink out, and deep in the trees something moves, but it moves away, not toward. The cave has held its silence well. Its children have stayed soft and safe. Tomorrow, their world will ask more of them. The climb will be steeper, the tools heavier, the fire harder to coax. But for now, that weight doesn't exist. The day is tucked away like a fur bundle. All that matters is this moment, this breath, this slow pulse of life carrying forward through sleep. And even in slumber, the learning continues. A child dreams of a river, not because they've seen one yet, but because the story was whispered over embers the night before. Another dreams of mammoths, of great shaggy beasts moving across a frozen plain, not in fear, but in awe. These dreams are not random. They are memory, passed down through imagination, through sound, through the weight of a story told slowly under stars. At the far end of the cave, someone begins to hum again. It's the same elder, her voice thin now, barely more than breath, but the tune is steady. The notes climb softly, then fall. And this time, it is not just for herself. One child stirs, not from fear, but to listen. The humming carries them downward into the deep, gentle dark. And all across the floor of the cave, the people sleep, young and old, parents and children, skin against hide, breath against bone. The fire glows its last red flickers, and the cave, full of life and breath and quiet love, exhales with them. The night holds. The past waits.
Morning does not arrive with a jolt in the cave. It seeps in slowly, like water soaking through stone, gentle and patient. The darkness lifts grain by grain as the sky outside shifts from deep blue to the softest gray. Inside, the fire has long since surrendered to coals, their light now nothing more than a memory of flame. But even before the birds begin to call or the wind picks up its pace, there is motion. Not loud, not hurried, just breath turning sharp again, limbs stretching in instinct, and the quiet creak of life returning. A child stirs first, not with a cry, but with a sigh. Their face presses into fur, then lifts slightly, sleep still heavy in their bones. Another rolls over, bumping a sibling. A small foot kicks gently, searching for warmth that's moved away. And then, as if summoned by this subtle stirring, one of the adults shifts. An arm reaches across the ground, brushing over embers, checking the heat without thought. The fire is cold. The task is clear. It must return. In modern homes, we flip switches, press buttons, warm water with machines. But here, nothing comes without effort. Someone rises, a mother, perhaps, or a father, or whichever adult is closest and awake enough to move. They kneel by the cold hearth, brush ash aside, check for a spark that may still be hiding beneath the black. Often there isn't one. Often it means starting again. Flint, steel, kindling, and time. Always time. A lesson the children learn early. Warmth comes not from wishing, but from doing. Around the fire pit, the cave becomes a slow dance of waking. Children rub eyes with fists. Elders sit upright, stretching stiff joints that remember older seasons. No one talks yet. The first hour of light belongs to the body, not the voice. One child pulls a hide tighter over their shoulders. Another crawls toward the fireside, watching intently. This, too, is learning. Sitting close, seeing how the spark is coaxed, how the smoke curls, how patience creates flame. Later in life, this child will remember the angle of the stone, the breath blown gently at just the right moment. But for now, they just sit and watch and remember. When the fire finally catches, crackling, brightening, stretching its light across the cave, it brings with it the first murmurs of speech. Not full words, not yet, just sounds. A name, a soft command, a chuckle. The flames pull the family into motion. Water must be fetched, hides shaken out, tools checked. A mother runs her hands over a scraping stone, inspecting the edge. A father digs through a pouch for sinew and bone, setting aside what needs repair. These moments look small, but they are everything. They are the difference between hunger and a meal, between cold and comfort, between sickness and strength. A child, still too young to work, drags a stick through the ash, drawing loops and spirals. Another tests the edge of a flint shard, wide-eyed at how it bites the skin of their fingertip. They don't cry. They watch the tiny bead of red rise, curious. And then a parent is there, not panicked, not scolding, just present. The child's hand is lifted, inspected, cleaned with a scrap of moss or a little water. Nothing more. The lesson is learned not with words, but with touch, with stillness, with care. Breakfast, if there is such a word here, is more of a moment than a meal. Some meat from the day before, if any remains, a handful of nuts, a root, roasted if possible, or simply chewed until soft. No bowls, no order, just food passed from hand to hand, bite to bite. A piece torn for the smallest child, a scrap held out to someone who hasn't yet risen. A mother chews a bit of bark, then transfers it to a baby's waiting mouth. It's not strange, it's not unpleasant, it's survival, turned tender. Outside, the world is waking too. Wind rustles leaves, a crow caws in the distance, and from somewhere unseen, the faint crash of water against stone, reminding them all that the river still runs. Soon the cave will empty again. The hunters will slip into the woods. The gatherers will trace paths known only to their feet. But in this in-between space, this early morning hush, there is time to simply be, to feel the closeness, to remember who is still here. A child climbs into an elder's lap, curling into the folds of age-softened skin and leather. No words are exchanged. None are needed. The warmth is enough. A father fixes a broken tool with the help of a son, showing him where the crack began, how to bind it better next time. In this small act, a skill passes from hand to hand, and the child, eyes shining with attention, learns not just how to mend, but how to care. And so the morning unfolds, quietly, gently, with the grace of people who know that nothing is guaranteed, that warmth is earned, that food is shared, that children are not taught by lecture, but by life. They don't call it parenting, they call it living. And in every motion, every breath, they are planting seeds of memory that will bloom for generations to come.
By now, the sun is beginning to warm the stone, drawing the sharp chill out of the morning air. The light outside no longer creeps in. It claims its place boldly now, casting clean shadows on the cave floor, catching the outlines of movement as people settle into their midday rhythm. In the clearing just beyond the mouth of the cave, the day unfolds in a hush of ordinary beauty. Small tasks, careful hands, a quiet kind of work that doesn't beg for attention but builds the bones of life all the same. Children, now more fully awake, begin to drift toward this open space. Not sent, not ordered, just drawn by instinct and rhythm. Some pick up stones, smooth and round from the river, and begin arranging them in lines, in piles, in shapes that only they understand. Others chase each other in slow, wide circles, feet stirring up dust, laughter sharp and brief like bird calls. No one stops them. As long as they remain in sight, they are free. Because even here, especially here, freedom is part of learning. Not far away, a young boy crouches beside an older woman, watching her rub a root between two stones. The paste that forms is dark, bitter-smelling, and sticky. It's medicine, or maybe pigment, or maybe both. He doesn't ask what it's for. He just watches, memorizing the pattern of motion. He will ask later, or maybe not at all. Sometimes knowing isn't a question, it's a shape that forms over time, the way water shapes stone. Near the fire, a girl no older than 6 has been handed a strip of hide to scrape. It is an important task, the piece is already mostly clean, but it's hers, her job, her chance to show what she knows. Her hands are small and the scraper awkward, but she works with a focus beyond her years. A nearby adult glances her way from time to time, not to correct, but to witness, to be present. That's what teaching looks like here. Not hovering, not instructing, just being near enough to catch the effort, to let the child feel seen. The midday sun warms more than skin. It brings movement. Some of the hunters have returned, not all, not yet, but enough to break the stillness. Their feet are dusty, their shoulders heavy. They speak in gestures, in brief sounds. One of them holds up a branch with claw marks, bare perhaps. Another shakes his head. No kill today, but no injury either. There is still food, still fire, still each other. One of the children runs up to meet a returning father. The man kneels without thinking, arms already open. The child barrels into him laughing, dust flying from bare feet. There are no words. None are needed. The man lifts the child, tosses them once in the air, then sets them down. The day moves on, but in that small act, fleeting, weightless, complete, a connection is strengthened, a memory made. The child will remember the dust, the grip, the laugh, not because it was rare, but because it was theirs. A few steps away, a group of children gather around a fresh catch, small but enough, a rabbit, still warm. An older child begins to explain where the spear landed, how it fell. The others listen with wide eyes, touching the fur, asking questions with their fingers. They aren't squeamish, they are curious. Life and death aren't mysteries to them. They are present, daily, raw. This is education without walls, experience over theory, practice over principle. And then there's the quiet work, the kind that doesn't draw attention. A woman grinding seeds with a stone. A man bending branches to shape a frame. A teenager threading sinew through holes in leather. No one applauds, no one comments, but nearby, children watch. Watch with the full attention that only comes when something is real, when it's not being performed for them, but done for its own sake. In that watching, skills take root, slowly, permanently. The heat grows, and so does the need for shade. Children retreat under rock overhangs, curl beside cool stones, drink from skins passed between them. Some nap, others listen to someone softly tapping a bone against a hollow log, an accidental rhythm, or maybe a deliberate one. It doesn't matter. The sound carries, low and steady, like a second heartbeat for the cave. There was no urgency here, no bells, no clocks, just the movement of the sun and the pull of the earth, guiding the day like a quiet drumbeat. The world outside may change, storms may come, herds may move, but in this space, this time, the shape of the day is enough. A child scrapes a hide and looks up. A father sharpening a spear nods. That nod carries more weight than a sentence. It says, "I see you. Keep going."
The light outside fades now, not in streaks or sudden darkness, but in slow surrender. The sky no longer burns, it exhales. The gold has cooled to ash, the blue deepened to charcoal, and within the cave, the last of the day's color slips quietly across stone and skin before disappearing into shadow. The fire, now at its fullest, becomes the center once more. It dances on the walls, makes giants out of children, turns every wrinkle and woven thread into glowing amber. The children are quiet, not asleep yet, but winding down, their voices softer, their movements more thoughtful.
One of them turns a bone over and over in his hands, watching how the light plays along its polished curve. Another rests her chin on her knees, blinking slowly, eyes half lost in the fire's flicker. They're not waiting for anything. They're just present. The kind of presence that only happens when nothing is demanded of you. Nearby, a mother nurses her baby in silence. The infant suckles without fuss, small hands pressed against her chest. Her eyes stare into the fire, but they're elsewhere too. Maybe remembering a different cave, a different fire, a time before this child. Or maybe not thinking at all, just breathing, giving, resting. Parenting here doesn't come in lessons or rules. It comes in endurance, in nearness, in repetition. A father sits sharpening a blade, not urgently, not perfectly, just steady, clean strokes. Beside him, a boy leans close, watching, mimicking with a smaller stone. He doesn't speak. The father doesn't correct. But every so often, their hands move at the same rhythm, and in that quiet synchronization, something is passed down. Not the skill itself, not yet, but the shape of it, the way it sounds, the patience it requires. Across the space, an elder begins another hum. No words, just a vibration that belongs to the firelight, a kind of sonic warmth that asks nothing and explains everything. The melody has no clear start or end, no chorus, no resolution. It simply exists, like the wind outside, like the night, like memory. One child inches closer, not to the fire, but to someone's lap. They don't ask to be held, they just fit themselves into a familiar curve. An arm comes around without looking, fingers find hair and begin to comb it slowly, gently. This is not bedtime as we know it. No brushing teeth, no tucked sheets. It is the slow collapse of movement into stillness, the body giving way to rest because there is nothing left to chase. Even the tools have stopped clinking. Even the bones have gone quiet. A dog, if they have one, sighs near the cave mouth, half curled, half watching. The world beyond the fire is no longer their concern. It belongs now to owls and night stalkers, to cold winds and distant echoes. But here, in this small circle of warmth and human breath, the danger is held at bay. Not by walls, not by weapons, but by closeness. There's something holy about this hour, not in the way we speak of temples or gods, but in the way time slows, thickens, folds around the people like a hide. Everyone is exactly where they need to be. No one is elsewhere. The children, barely awake, absorb this, not through language, but through skin, through the steady thump of another's heart, through the way a mother hums while rubbing warmth into tiny feet. They are learning things they won't remember, not clearly, but deeply. Things they will one day do without knowing why. Lifting a child in the dark, stirring embers with bare fingers, singing to no one, just because it helps the night feel softer. These are the moments that shape a future, not in fire or stone, but in silence, in rhythm, in love that has no name but every shape. Eventually, sleep will take them all. The fire will shrink, the hums will fade. Only breath will remain, layered, warm, soft. And the cave will hold them, as it always has, not as guests, not as strangers, but as a family, sewn together by time, by need, by quiet hands doing quiet work in a loud world. And just before the final eyes close, someone, child or elder, might whisper a word into the dark. Not to ask, not to explain, just to mark the moment. Because even without clocks, they understand. Another day is over. Another story has ended. And tomorrow, without fanfare, another will begin.
The night outside has settled fully now, a thick and weighty calm stretched across the forest like a wool hide pulled tight. The stars are out in clusters, not twinkling like in stories, but cold and steady, watching the land in silence. Inside the cave, the warmth holds. It lingers, wrapped around bodies and bones, around skins and quiet breath. This is the cave at its most honest. No noise, no effort, just the slow rhythm of rest. And yet, rest does not mean stillness. A foot twitches, a child stirs, then settles. Someone coughs gently, rubbing a shoulder before turning over. Even the fire makes its small movements, whispering sparks upward before swallowing them in its red-gold heart. This is the sound of ancient sleep, not silent, not perfect, alive. Living things breathe through the dark, and the dark listens. One of the older children is still awake. He lies near the edge of the firelight, where shadows begin to pool and the ground is colder. His eyes are open, blinking slowly, not afraid, but thinking. It's a look seen in many children across time, the gaze into nothing, into everything, where questions begin that may never find words. He listens to the fire, to the breaths of his family, to the way the night outside stretches on forever. He doesn't move, but his mind does. He is learning, not facts, but feelings. The sense of being small, and yet not alone. At the far end of the cave, an elder turns over and murmurs something in sleep. The words are soft, half-formed. A name, maybe, or a place, or a piece of an old memory drifting up from the deep. No one answers. No one needs to. The sound fades back into breath, and the stillness folds in again. This night, like the many before it, is long. Not in the way clocks measure time, but in the way the body measures weight, cold, silence. Time moves differently here. It stretches, thins, curls around the fire like smoke. And in that stretch, the children sleep deeper. Their dreams, unshaped by language, grow vivid, full of rivers and beasts, of climbing and falling, of warmth and loss, and the strange patterns of stars above their heads. Dreams here are not just stories, they are instructions. The mind making sense of the world the body cannot explain. A child may dream of walking through water, only to wake craving its sound. Another may dream of their parent vanishing into the trees, and wake clinging tighter to a familiar hand. In this way, the night teaches, quietly, without permission. Hours pass, the fire dims, coals darken. The warmth becomes less certain. And this too is part of the rhythm, because eventually someone must wake. Someone always does. A father, light sleeper, opens his eyes to the cold tickle of air on his cheek. He doesn't sigh, doesn't groan. He simply moves, rolls out of the shared warmth, kneels by the dying coals, and begins the ritual. He pokes gently, checking for life. There, a faint glow, a memory of heat.
He gathers twigs, dry moss, curls his fingers around stone and flint, and listens as the new fire takes. He does this not for praise. No one sees him. He does it because it is needed, because it has always been done, and because his child, sleeping nearby, will one day do the same, without question, without hesitation, just as it was passed to him. This is parenting in its truest form, the unseen, the thankless, the essential. With the fire reborn, he returns to the warmth, slipping between bodies, letting the heat gather again. The cave holds them all, tucked in silence, in breath, in flame. By morning, the light returns in slivers, pale and silver and uncertain. It comes not with noise, but with change, in air, in scent, in the way eyes twitch behind lids. The cave brightens slowly. No one jumps awake. Instead, the world turns gently, and the people turn with it. One child is first to rise today. A girl, small, hair matted, her tunic twisted from sleep. She sits up, rubs her face, and blinks at the light. She does not cry, does not call out. She looks at the coals, then at the pile of hides, then at her own hands. She stands, quietly, steps over a foot, over a stick, and walks, barefoot, to the mouth of the cave. There she stops. The world greets her, not with sound, but with movement. Wind in leaves, a bird shaking water off its wings. She watches, not blinking. This is not new, but it feels important. And in this stillness, something inside her says, "This is the world." No one told her, but she knows. She doesn't wander, just watches. And then, when she has had enough, she returns. Behind her, others begin to stir. The rhythm repeats. Fire check, breath check, body check. The cave shifts from sleep to life again, not with alarm, but with return. Parents stretch, children murmur, an elder sneezes, curses softly, and then comes the sound that starts every day, the rustle of hides, the tapping of stone, and the long exhale of fire as kindling catches. Tools are gathered, water is fetched. The tasks are the same, but they never feel empty, because each movement, each effort speaks, "We are still here." And that, more than food or fire, is the first need met each morning, to be here, together. One child laughs suddenly, chasing a beetle across the stone. Another slips and falls, lets out a sharp cry. The nearest adult turns, lifts the child, brushes off the scrape, and touches forehead to forehead. There is no punishment, no frustration, just comfort. The lesson is learned again. The world is hard, but not unkind. Not here, not now. And as the cave fully wakes and the day begins again, the cycle continues. Not because it must, but because it works. Because long ago, someone figured out how to raise a child in a place without books, without clocks, without speech as we know it. They did it with fire, with song, with arms that lifted without question, and eyes that saw without asking. And today, like every day, that work continues. Quiet, steady, deep as the earth, and strong enough to hold the future. The morning is in full bloom now, golden light spilling generously into the cave and onto the stone outside. warming what the night had left cold. Shadows have pulled back, retreating to the corners. The air carries the smell of ash, fir, and damp grass, the smells of a day just beginning, and with it the people stir into full motion, not rushed, but certain. This is not the chaos of alarms and schedules. It is the quiet discipline of tradition, of repetition, of knowing your place in a rhythm older than memory. A child drags a hide blanket behind her, trailing it like a tail as she makes her way toward a cluster of adults working near the fire. No one stops her, no one tells her to sit, but space is made. Someone shifts, someone nudges a stone to the side. She finds her spot not because it is given, but because it is there, waiting. This is how children belong in the group, by default, by presence, not permission. The work today is simple, but necessary. One of the older boys is tasked with scraping fat from the inside of a hide, labor that smells strong, sticks to the fingers, and must be done just so. He grimaces but does not stop. Beside him, his younger brother watches, crouched low, eyes level with the blade. The boy scrapes in long, firm strokes, occasionally flicking the residue to the side. He does not explain what he's doing, but every motion is a lesson. The younger child sees where the pressure is placed, when to pause, when to check the edge of the stone. This is school, without question, without pencils, without silence. Nearby, a woman is weaving thin strips of bark together, twisting them with fingers worn smooth. A child sits beside her with a pile of bark that's too dry to use, cracking it in half, playing more than helping. Still, he is there, and that matters. He sees what her hands do. He smells the sap. He hears the split and bend of wood. One day, when someone hands him bark and says, "Make," he will already know what to do. Elsewhere, two children have wandered a short distance from the cave. Not far, still within sight. One is older, leading the way through low brush, pointing to prints in the soil. "Deer," she says, or something close to it. The younger nods, not understanding entirely, but understanding enough. They crouch, they look, they whisper, though no one told them to be quiet. The world itself demands it. You don't yell near tracks. You don't stomp through clues. The forest is a teacher, and it rewards those who listen. Back at the cave, a baby fusses. The mother doesn't pause her task. She simply shifts, lifts, tucks the baby closer, continuing with one hand what she had done with two. There is no tension, no complaint. This is how things are. And the baby, now pressed close to her heartbeat, quiets again, soothed not by lullabies or magic, but by the simple presence of a familiar rhythm. You see it even now in supermarkets, on city sidewalks, on long bus rides. The rock, the bounce, the hum, the movements unchanged, because babies then and now ask for the same thing. Hold me, keep me close, show me the world is still okay. A group of boys gathers near the fire with stones in hand, not weapons yet, but shapes of intention. They talk in short bursts, mimic throws, test balance. One of the men watches them for a while, then gestures toward a tree stump in the clearing. They understand instantly. A target. Practice begins. Not with a speech, not with safety rules, just with doing. One throws. The stone hits wide. Another steps up, tries again. The men do not interfere. They only watch. And when someone's throw lands true, there's no applause, just a small smile, maybe a nod, enough to say, "Yes, that's it," enough to say, "Now do it again." These are the lessons that build more than skill. They build trust. A child who is allowed to miss will learn to aim. A child who is watched, not corrected, learns to correct themselves. And all around them, the world confirms what they are learning, that patience pays, that repetition matters, that knowledge isn't spoken first, it's felt. Later, as the sun lifts higher and the warmth grows thick, some children return to the cave, slipping into the cool shadows. They find stones to sit on, lean against adults who pause to rest, or curl beside a dog sleeping with its nose under its paw. The pace slows. Work is still being done, but in waves now, not urgency. A man repairs a strap. A woman separates dried roots. A child peels bark, not because they were told, but because the hands need to move. Rest is not stillness, it is motion made gentle. One child sits beside the elder, the one who hums, the one who sees with cloudy eyes, but speaks with clarity. The child doesn't ask for a story, but the elder begins one anyway, soft, slow, words falling like leaves. The child listens, head tilted, chewing a strip of dry meat as the tale winds on. It is a story of before, of hunger, of fire found in a storm. The child may forget the details, but they will remember the voice, the feeling, the fact that someone took the time to speak when no one asked. These stories are not just for entertainment, they are blueprints. Myths, yes, but also maps of behavior, of response, of belief. In a world without books, your memory is the archive, your breath is the library, and the stories, though simple, contain instructions for fear, for bravery, for love, for loss. As the day begins to stretch into its second half, the children begin to gather again near the fire. One brings a newfound object, a bird's feather, white and gray. It is passed around, admired, not for its rarity, but for its place. It means the bird was here. It means the world moved while they weren't watching. And that is a kind of magic. Another child shows a drawing scratched into the dirt. 3 lines, a dot, a crescent. No one quite knows what it is. The child doesn't explain. But they smile when someone nods at it. And that smile is the point. Not the meaning, but the connection. A moment shared, a creation witnessed. This is how days are built, not with grand gestures, but with countless small ones. A scrape, a nod, a caught stone, a soothed cry. This is parenting that doesn't preach, it surrounds, it absorbs, it repeats. And so the day goes on, not loudly, but fully. Shadows shift, voices rise, then quiet. The fire is fed again, and around it, children continue becoming, shaped not by force, not by pressure, but by presence. Quiet, constant, whole.
The sun has begun its slow lean toward the western horizon, casting long shadows across the clearing and softening the world in golden hues. Everything outside the cave starts to glow. Stones take on a warm blush, the tree trunks shine amber, and even the dust in the air floats like slow sparks. It's not yet evening, but the day has turned its face. The stillness begins to return. Not the hush of night, but a pause, a breath, the first suggestion that the time of gathering is near. Children sense this shift before adults say anything. One by one, the games wind down. The running stops. The stones are placed back in piles. Even the laughter quiets. Not out of command, but because the body knows. The sun is moving again, the fire will be lit again, and the people will come together again. Inside the cave, preparations begin with little ceremony. Someone feeds dry grass into the coals. Another arranges a few thicker sticks, coaxing flame without rush. There is no need to hurry. The cave remembers the fire. It always returns.
The smoke begins to rise, slow and smooth, curling into the ceiling's dark dome. The children return in groups now, drawn not by call, but by scent, by light, by the gravity of routine. Like planets to a star, they orbit inward. The smallest ones arrive first, rubbing tired eyes or tugging gently at a parent's arm. They are met with touch. Hair smoothed, cheeks brushed, arms wrapped gently around small shoulders. Then the older children come, carrying things they found. A curved stick, a beetle, a half-formed story about something spotted in the distance. These treasures are shared quietly, not as boasts, but as pieces of the day passed into safe hands. There's no loud reunion, no grand performance, just a slow thickening of presence. People returning to the fire, people returning to each other. Food is modest tonight. A few tubers, a handful of nuts, what remains of the dried meat. It's enough, though. It always is, because no one eats alone. A child hands their portion to someone smaller. A piece of roasted root is broken in half and offered without a word. Someone chews a strip of meat, softens it, then passes it to a toddler who grins wide, eyes bright with trust. This is how hunger is softened, not with abundance, but with care. No one leaves full, but no one leaves forgotten. Even those who say nothing are noticed. A glance, a hand, a shared silence. These are meals that nourish more than the body. As they eat, someone speaks. Not loudly, just enough for those nearby to hear. A story. Maybe one from yesterday. Maybe from years ago. Or maybe from no time at all. A story that has always been. The words are simple. The rhythm familiar. The children don't ask questions, but they lean closer, chins resting on knees, fingers twirling in dust. They listen for what the words don't say, for the space between them. That space is where meaning lives. After the story, there is no applause, just a moment of stillness, a shared breath, the kind that only happens when everyone knows the ending, and yet it still feels good to hear it told again. Outside, the light continues to change. The gold fades to copper, then to rose, then to the deep blue of oncoming night. One child points to the sky. A single star has appeared. They called to the others, not in excitement, but in wonder. The others come. Heads tilt back, eyes widen. The world is enormous again. And quiet. A parent kneels beside a child and points to another star, then another. They don't name them. There are no constellations here. Just stories. This one is a hunter. That one is a lost deer. That one, look how it flickers. That one must be fire watching from above. The child nods, committing the shape to memory. One day they'll point to the same patch of sky and tell someone else, that one flickers because it listens. Slowly, the bodies shift toward rest. The fire is banked, the stones are moved closer, hides are shaken out, but no one hurries. Sleep isn't a rule, it's a tide. It rolls in, quiet and inevitable. One child lies down first. Another follows. Then a third curls beside the dog, using its side as a pillow. Parents settle next, not because they are done, but because their children are. It is a shared descent, a gentle folding inward. The elder hums again, just once, a low, drawn-out note that lingers like the last light at dusk. It's not a song. It's a permission. You may rest now. The work is done. The fire is watching. There are no good nights spoken, no kisses or prayers, just bodies drawn close, hands resting where they may. One child whispers something, barely heard, and someone else answers, not with words, but with a hand squeezed lightly in reply. And that's all that's needed. Because in this cave, on this day, surrounded by stone and breath and fading firelight, love does not need language. It is written in presence, in the shared quiet, in the warmth that spreads not from the flame, but from the nearness of others.
The sky beyond the cave has deepened fully into night. A dark velvet stretched across the world, embroidered with the same steady stars that watched the children sleep the night before. The moon hangs low and bright, casting a cool silver glow across the trees, brushing their tops like a hand smoothing hair. Inside, the fire has calmed, no longer reaching, just pulsing quietly, a slow, sure breath at the center of everything. Everyone sleeps. Almost everyone. A child stirs, eyes blinking open not from fear or hunger, but from that odd, ageless instinct, waking for no reason, just to listen. They sit up slowly, not waking anyone, rubbing their face with both hands, staring into the glowing embers. There's no sound outside, just wind threading itself through branches and the fire whispering in its low, unhurried voice. The child doesn't speak, doesn't move, just sits, breathing the same rhythm as the night. Moments like this shape memory. Not the loud ones, not the exciting ones. These, where nothing is demanded, nothing is taught. Just space, just quiet, just the world as it is. Across the cave, an elder opens one eye, not surprised. Perhaps they've been half awake already, attuned to the rhythms of the young. Perhaps they remember being the child who used to sit at the edge of sleep, watching the fire like it might answer a question they didn't know how to ask. The elder shifts slightly, makes a soft sound, almost like clearing the throat, almost like singing. The child hears it and smiles, just a little, then lies down again, curling into the same patch of hide they rose from. The moment passes, but it will live somewhere inside, in the part of the heart where we keep the warmth we didn't earn, but were given anyway. Morning comes again, slowly, as always. Light blooming over the trees, pale and golden, softening the edges of the world. The fire is low, but not gone. One of the adults is already tending it, lifting sticks, checking the heart of the coals with bare hands and practiced calm. The smoke winds upward in lazy spirals. Another day is unfolding, and already the movements have begun, stretching, shifting, the shuffling of tired feet over stone. The children wake in stages, one by one, then all at once. First, the small ones, pulled from sleep by hunger or chill. Then the older ones, blinking into the new light, still tangled in dreams. No one calls out, no one claps hands or issues orders, but everyone knows the day has begun and there is work to do. Water must be gathered, stones sharpened, bits of hide checked for damage. The simple daily rituals that seem small but hold the world together. A boy takes a water skin without being asked and walks to the stream nearby. His younger sister follows, barefoot and quiet. Along the way, they talk, not in full sentences, but in fragments, gestures, shared looks. The stream is cold and clear, the sound of it soft and constant. The boy kneels, dips the skin, watches the bubbles rise as it fills. The girl pokes a stick into the mud, humming softly, making small circles. No one rushes them. They return when they're ready, carrying not just water, but a quiet pride. They've done something, and it matters.
Inside the cave, breakfast is being prepared. That word might be too modern. It's not a meal with structure or start time. It's more like a beginning, shared in bites and bits, dried meat, crushed nuts, roasted roots heated over coals. The food is passed around, never counted, never claimed. A mother chews a tough piece of root, then softens it further for her child. The baby clutches at her hand, eager, not knowing yet what hunger is, only that this is how it is solved. The fire is fed again, and the space around it becomes a gathering ground. Children play, but even their play has purpose. They mimic the adults, throwing stones at targets, stacking objects, wrapping stringy grass around sticks to make pretend tools. One child pretends to trade with another, offering a shiny pebble in exchange for a broken feather. There is no real value in either, but the gesture is everything. They are learning how to give, how to ask, how to agree. A group of adults prepares to leave, to hunt, to gather, to search. The children don't beg to come. They don't cry. They know their role. The older ones stay behind to help watch the younger. They know this too. They don't complain. A girl no older than 12 lifts a toddler onto her hip and bounces gently while talking with a friend. Her motions are effortless, learned by watching, absorbed over hundreds of mornings like this one. A boy fetches tools for his uncle, who tests each one, grunts in approval, or shakes his head, pointing to flaws. The boy listens, nods, corrects. There is no scolding, just showing. The lesson is in the doing, and the doing is never done alone. As the hunting party disappears into the trees, the cave becomes quieter, not silent, just more focused. The rhythm changes. Now it's about maintaining, tending to what's here, cleaning, sorting, checking traps nearby. The children help without it feeling like help. It is simply the day, and they are part of it. One child kneels beside a woman scraping bark for thread. She hands him a strip, shows how to twist it. He fumbles, she waits, he tries again. Eventually, the thread begins to form. He grins. She nods. Nothing more. That moment will stay, not for the thread, but for the trying, and for the patience that met it. Another child lies on their back near the fire, arms behind their head, watching the patterns in the smoke. They are quiet, not idle. Their mind is building stories, questions, plans. Nearby, the elder begins to hum again, not for performance, just because the tune is close. It floats across the space, slow and familiar. The children don't stop to listen, but they hear it. They always hear it. By midday, the sun sits high and warm, and the cave smells of smoke, sweat, earth, and life. Everything is in motion, even the stillness. Children pass knowledge back and forth like stones, unpolished, irregular, real. And all of it, all of this, is parenting. Not through instruction, not through rules, but through nearness, through witness, through the gift of being allowed to grow in a place where eyes see you, hands catch you, and fire always waits for your return. Another day is shaping itself one moment at a time, and the children, as always, are watching, learning, becoming.
The sun has begun its long, quiet descent once more, brushing the tops of the trees with gold, turning the edges of every leaf to fire. Shadows stretch across the clearing outside the cave, spilling into its mouth like soft ink, cool and slow. The people feel it in their bodies before they see it, the subtle slowing of motion, the shift in the air, the way sounds carry differently in the afternoon light. The time of return is near. Children are the first to feel the change.
Their play, once wide and scattered, begins to tighten. The games end without decision. Sticks are dropped, stones left where they lie. A few drift back toward the fire, not because they're called, but because the day itself is calling. They feel it like animals do, intuitively, without language. One of the older girls begins to sweep dust and loose leaves from the stone floor with a bundled branch. She hums to herself, low and even, not a melody so much as a rhythm. Another child joins, mimicking the movement, brushing carefully around the fire's edge. No one told them to clean. No one had to. This is what the body does when the light begins to change. It prepares. At the edge of the cave, a boy sits with a handful of twine and dried berries, threading them together with slow fingers. He's not making anything for use, just something that feels like it wants to exist. A necklace, maybe. A gift. A game. The action itself matters more than the outcome. Nearby, a child traces shapes in the dirt. A spiral, a stick figure, a crude animal with 4 too long legs. No one interrupts. These are not distractions. They're the beginning of something older than art. They're expressions, observations, thoughts finding shape in gesture. Then the sound comes. Soft footsteps. Then more. The hunting party returns.
The stars hang steady overhead, cool and patient, as if they've waited all along for the fire to fade and the breathing to slow. The forest beyond the cave has gone quiet, save for the occasional call of something far off,
An owl, maybe, or a fox. The air is colder now, sharp at the edges. It creeps in softly, brushing cheeks and bare feet, reminding the sleepers that the world outside is vast, untamed, and always listening. Inside the cave, the bodies lie close, a gentle tangle of limbs and hides, warmth passed from one to the next without thought. The fire still breathes, but only just, its core pulsing faintly beneath a blanket of ash. A few red veins glow like the last thoughts before sleep, stubborn and quiet. One child stirs. She doesn't wake with a start, doesn't cry out. She opens her eyes slowly, blinking into the dimness, listening. Not for danger, there's none here, but for something quieter. Maybe the wind, maybe the sound of someone's breath catching in a dream. She lifts her head slightly, then rests it back down, her cheek against the worn leather of a folded tunic. Her small fingers reach out, brushing the back of her sister's hand. No words, just touch. This moment, small and unseen, is one of the many that shape her. She will not remember it in years to come, not in detail, but the feeling will stay. The feeling of being near, of being safe, of knowing she could wake and not be alone. That's what the fire meant, too. Not just heat, but presence. And in this cave, that presence is constant. Across from her, one of the elders lies with eyes open, watching the embers with a look somewhere between wakefulness and memory. He doesn't move, doesn't speak. His breath is slow, measured. He has seen more fires than he can count. More births, more deaths, more mornings after storms. His body hurts in places it didn't used to, but he is still here, and so are they, and that is enough. As the deepest hours of night settle in, the cave becomes something more than shelter. It becomes a memory in motion, a living moment woven out of every breath, every shift of weight, every unconscious gesture. The children grow here, not just in size, but in knowing, in the language of hands, in the rhythm of steps, in the patience of silence. The night moves forward. The stars wheel above. The cold presses closer to the cave mouth, but does not enter. The fire, though weak, is not done. Just before dawn, someone wakes again. A man this time. His body knows it's time. Not because of light, not because of sound. Just something internal, an ancestral clock wound tight by repetition and need. He rises, stretching carefully, then kneels by the coals. With practiced ease, he begins the process, stirring the ash, feeding in dry moss, adding the slenderest sticks. A single spark responds. He leans close, breathes gently. Flame returns. It begins as a flicker, a thread of gold in the gray. Then it catches, grows, illuminates the wall behind him, the curve of his shoulder, the stone floor marked by thousands of feet before his. Around him, the others remain asleep, though the light tugs at them, prepares their bodies to return. A child rolls over, pulling a fur tighter. Another murmurs in a dream. The day is not yet here, but it's coming. As the fire grows, it brings back the world. The smell of smoke, the promise of warmth, the memory of food, and slowly, eyes begin to open. There are no words, no good morning, no clatter of pots or buzzing alarms, just motion, slow and sure. A mother pulls her child closer, brushing her cheek with the back of her hand. An elder sits up, groaning softly, stretching arms that have carried too much. Two children curl into each other, delaying the day just a little longer. And then the sound of kindling snapping, the first full breath of the fire, the return. Someone rises and steps outside. The light is returning to the trees, soft and silver. Mist clings low to the ground, and the grass glitters with dew. Birds begin to sing, one, then another, then a cascade. It is not loud, but it is alive. The child who woke first now stands at the cave mouth, blinking into the new day. Her feet are bare, her eyes wide. She watches the trees as if they've grown taller overnight, as if something new is waiting among the branches. Behind her, the others begin to stir in full. The day calls, not loudly, not all at once, but insistently. The fire is ready. The food will be gathered. The world has turned again, and with it, the people move forward. And through it all, the children are still learning, still becoming, not through words, but through waking, through watching, through the quiet, ancient rhythm of another day in the cave.
The light spills slowly across the cave floor now, golden and low, lighting the stone in soft layers, cool near the wall, warm where the fire crackles back to life. A few birds call from the trees, not far but not close either, as if reminding the people that the forest is still there, still full of teeth and wings and motion. The cave wakes gradually, as it always does, not in bursts, but in ripples. One stretch, one slow rise, one soft call from mother to child, not spoken, just hummed under breath. A small group begins the morning chores without being asked. A boy gathers empty skins and walks down to the stream, careful not to spill, holding each one like a fragile promise. His sister trails behind, her hand dragging along the grass. She doesn't speak, but she watches the path carefully, memorizing every stone. The older children are already trusted with the trail. The younger are trusted to follow. Back inside, someone pulls apart the coals, checking for heat. There's plenty. The fire's heart was never lost, only sleeping. A woman places a handful of roots in a bark bowl, adding water slowly, stirring with a stick. A child watches her stir, fascinated not by the food, but by the pattern, the way the hand moves, the way the steam begins to rise. He copies her with his own stick in the dirt. She doesn't stop him. This is the beginning of learning, through shadow and rhythm, not instruction. Soon the cave is full again, not crowded, not noisy, but full. The children tumble in and out of each other's tasks. One girl helps hang a drying hide, her small hands steady against the wind. A younger boy tries to lift a bundle of sticks and nearly topples over. Someone laughs softly, not at him but with warmth. A hand helps him. They lift it together. A group of adults prepares for the day's trip, maybe hunting, maybe foraging. The children watch them tie up bundles, check stones, pass spears hand to hand. They don't interrupt. They know this is important. One child steps closer than the others, watching the tying of a leather strap with sharp eyes. The adult notices, but says nothing. He ties slower, more deliberately, and the child in silence commits every motion to memory. When the group departs, they do so quietly, no goodbyes, just movement. They are not leaving, they are doing. And they'll return, as they always do, by dusk. Those who remain shift into a different rhythm. Children help where they can,
rest when they need to. One scrapes a piece of hide clean while telling a story to the one next to him, something about a bear or a dream or both. The other child nods along, distracted but listening. That's the thing about stories here. They're not given like gifts. They drift, they settle. At the fire, an older girl braids long strands of grass together, her fingers flying without thought. A toddler sits beside her, chewing the end of a stick. She weaves one strand into another, and then hands the finished braid to the child. He clutches it like it's a treasure. It's not strong, not pretty, not useful, but it's his. Something given, something shared. By midday, the sun is high. Shadows are short, and the work slows. Some children nap. Others sit in silence, fingers dragging over rock, making grooves just to feel the texture. One boy hums to himself. It's not a tune, just a note he returns to, again and again. It's comfort, a way to shape the silence into something he can hold. An elder begins to tell a story, not loud, not to a crowd, just to a child who sat close enough to hear. The words come slow. The child leans in. Another hears the first line and joins them, then another. Soon there are 5, maybe 6, gathered close not because they were summoned, but because the story found them. The elder speaks of a great river, of stones that move in the night, of animals that speak if you're quiet enough to listen. The children say nothing. Their eyes grow wide. One clutches the edge of their tunic. These aren't just tales. They're threads, each word binding them to something older, something larger. Elsewhere, the forest moves, leaves shift, birds scatter. But here, within the cave, time doesn't race. It folds. And within that fold, the children continue to grow. Quietly, steadily, by watching, by listening, by doing. The light will change again soon. The hunters will return. The fire will rise. But for now, the day holds still. And in that stillness, childhood continues, not hurried, not broken, not lost, but held. Tenderly, constantly, as it always has been.
The sun, now past its highest point, begins to lean into afternoon, softening again, turning its brilliance into something golden and wide. It filters through the trees like slow honey, dappling the path outside the cave, spilling across stones, warming backs and shoulders. Inside, the cave breathes a little deeper. The tasks of the morning have been done, water fetched, tools mended, skins stretched and drying on racks just beyond the mouth. Children move more slowly now, their bursts of energy stretching into longer pauses, their play blending into the quiet, familiar rhythm of the place. One boy lies on his stomach near the fire, chin resting on his folded arms, drawing circles in the dirt with a stick. Not symbols, not words, just patterns, repetition. Something in the movement soothes him. A toddler beside him mimics his action, giggling each time the circle wobbles or breaks. The boy doesn't stop him, doesn't correct. He draws again, slower this time, letting the younger one copy better. The lesson isn't in success, it's in staying, in being watched, in allowing. Elsewhere, a girl helps her grandmother separate dried herbs, laying them gently in little piles along a flat stone. They don't speak much. Occasionally the elder points or shakes her head, correcting a mistake with a gesture. But mostly they sit in rhythm, sorting, smelling, remembering. The girl sniffs a leaf, crinkles her nose. The elder laughs, low and raspy, and hands her another. This one, sweeter. The girl nods. This one she likes. Outside, a small group of children has wandered to the edge of the tree line. They aren't far,
just far enough to feel alone. They carry no weapons, just sticks, just questions. One stops and crouches, pointing to a set of tracks, not fresh, but clear. They study the shape, the depth, the direction. Guess out loud. Deer? Rabbit? Something else. There is no adult to confirm or correct. This is how they learn, together, by guessing, by arguing, by remembering pieces of stories told beside the fire. The world teaches, not just through danger, but through invitation, through mystery. Back near the cave, the fire has been stirred again, its warmth coaxed higher in preparation for the evening. A pot of water steams gently above it, filled with roots, berries, and bark. A simple meal, nourishment drawn from knowledge passed down in pieces. One child watches closely as the mixture darkens, bubbles slow and thick. She isn't told to help, but she asks with her hands, hovering nearby, mimicking. She'll be allowed soon. For now she's watching. And watching, here, is as much work as doing. The hunters return quietly. No great announcement, just footsteps on the path, a shadow across the trees, a voice, a glance. They're back. The children look up. Some run. Some stay put but follow the returning figures with their eyes, tracking faces, reading the weight in their steps, the blood on their hands, the bundles on their backs. No feast today. A modest haul, but safe, whole, together. One father squats to show his son a freshly caught bird, still feathered, still warm. He turns it over gently, points to where the arrow struck, how it pierced, how it didn't break the bone. The boy nods solemnly, not because he understands it all, but because he wants to. A younger sibling watches from behind his brother's shoulder, a chain of seeing, a line of becoming. Soon the food is cooking. The smell rises into the cave, earthy and sharp and familiar. The people settle without needing to be called. A circle reforms around the flame, not perfectly, not symmetrically, but naturally, like roots winding toward water. Children sit wherever there's space, lean against whoever is closest. The meal is shared the same way, without portion, without pause. A bite for this one, a piece for that. One girl doesn't eat right away. She's tired, a little distant. A boy notices, presses a strip of meat into her hand without a word. She takes it, doesn't say thank you. She doesn't need to. The gesture is the thank you. After the meal, the fire burns brighter, the shadows grow longer, and the stories begin again. This time from a boy, not yet a man, not quite a child. He speaks with effort, not from shyness, but from respect. He's telling something he was told once before, a hunt, a mistake, a recovery. He falters in places, adds things that weren't there. The adults don't interrupt. The children don't laugh. He's trying. That's what matters. The story is his now. It changes with him. The elder listens, nodding at key moments, watching how the children respond. One girl leans forward, lips parted in quiet awe. Another leans back, arms crossed, skeptical. Both reactions are true. Both are needed. This is how stories survive, by being challenged, stretched, loved. The fire pops loudly, and a toddler startles. His mother scoops him up, rocks him gently, whispering something only he hears. He relaxes, melts into her chest, and the cave breathes again. As twilight deepens, the story ends, not with applause, but with a sigh, a shifting of weight, the crack of a back being stretched, the low murmur of approval from someone who doesn't offer words easily. Children begin to lie down. One curls into a hide with a sibling. Another wraps arms around knees, staring into the fire. A girl traces the lines on the cave wall with a fingertip, following the stories left there long before her birth. The world narrows. The light lowers,
and once more, the fire becomes the only voice. In its flicker, every lesson remains, every glance, every small moment of care. They aren't lost to the quiet. They become the quiet, woven into the night, folded into memory. Tomorrow will come, the light will rise, and the children will wake again, older, maybe only slightly, but always moving forward. Not taught, but shaped. Not pushed, but guided. By the cave, by the fire, by the day that was, and the ones still coming.
Night falls once again with a softness only ancient places remember. There is no sudden darkness here, only the gradual retreat of light, the long exhale of day giving way to the quiet pull of sleep. Outside the cave, the trees stand like dark sentinels, motionless against the last traces of twilight. The air cools, the wind shifts, and the sky above blossoms with stars so numerous they seem to breathe. The moon is a thin sliver tonight, shy and silent, offering only enough glow to silver the leaves and shimmer the cave's edge. Inside, the fire has settled into a slow rhythm, flame low, coals deep. Its warmth radiates gently, touching bodies tucked beneath hides and curled beside each other. Sleep has come to most, though not all. There are always watchers, some by duty, others by the restless pull of thought. A young mother leans against the wall, rocking her baby who stirs in shallow waves of sleep. She hums, not a melody with words, just a note rising and falling like a breath, her fingers brushing the infant's hair with a rhythm that's older than music. Near her, a boy shifts in his sleep. His foot nudges his sister's knee, and without opening his eyes, she turns and lays a hand on his back. It is instinct, this nearness, this wordless comfort passed between them. They do not remember a time they slept alone. The idea of a separate bed, a separate room, would be as strange to them as silence is to the fire. Here, sleep is shared, and safety is found not in walls, but in closeness. In the far corner, an elder remains half awake, as he always does, his ears tuned to the cave's rhythm, the occasional cough, the sigh of wind through stone, the low mutter of someone dreaming. His eyes trace the firelight as it dances along the ceiling, flickering across ancient soot marks and story stains, shadows left behind by hundreds of nights just like this one. His body no longer joins the hunt, his fingers no longer sharpen blades, but his presence, his knowing, is the tether that holds the circle together. Sometime past midnight, the wind picks up outside, just enough to whistle through the cave mouth, stirring loose grass and waking a few sleepers. A child whimpers, caught in a bad dream. Instantly, a parent moves, no questions, no delay. Arms wrap around the child, a cheek is pressed to a forehead, a blanket is pulled tighter. The child breathes fast, then slower, and soon the nightmare dissolves like mist touched by morning. This is parenting here, not made of praise charts or scolding words, but of presence, of response. The way a body bends without thinking, the way a hand lifts because another hand is trembling. The lessons come later, the holding comes first. By early dawn, the sky is still deep blue but softening. The stars begin to dim, folding themselves away one by one. The cave is quiet but stirring. First a shift, then a groan, then the scrape of a hide being folded back. A man rises slowly, rubbing his eyes, checking the fire. The embers are low, but not gone. He adds a stick, waits, breathes on the coals. They glow, then flicker, then catch. The fire returns without fanfare, a silent agreement. The day begins again. A few children wake just after. One rubs sleep from his eyes, stands and walks straight to the fire, sitting cross-legged, blinking at the new flame. Another pulls a sibling's blanket back up, covering a foot left cold in the night. No one taught her to do that, but she's seen it, felt it, and now she does it too. Soon the cave begins to stretch and breathe again. Someone brings water. Someone else begins to peel bark for thread. Breakfast begins not with hunger but with habit. A handful of nuts passed around, a root sliced open and offered in pieces. Children take bites not waiting for permission. They eat what is there and nothing is wasted. As more people rise, the space begins to fill again with voices, soft, murmured, gentle. A question, a shared joke, a story remembered from the night before, retold now in morning light with smiles where gasps had once been. One boy reenacts part of the tale, hopping on one foot, then tumbling dramatically. His fall brings laughter, not cruel, but easy, familiar. He grins from the ground, proud to be the story now. Outside, the forest wakes too. Birds call, leaves shift, and somewhere not far off, the crack of twigs. Perhaps an animal, perhaps the wind, perhaps a lesson waiting in the underbrush. Today, like every day, the children will learn, not in rows, not by rule, but by rhythm, by being close to the fire, by watching hands tie knots, watching eyes scan the woods, watching feet avoid thorn and stone. And again they will return, not just with hunger or tired limbs, but with stories, with scratches that carry adventure, with looks that say, "I saw something new." And again they will be held, they will be listened to, and under the stars, with the fire burning low, they will dream. The cave remains. So do they.
The light returns softly, like breath warming cold hands. It touches the edge of the cave first, the stone lip worn smooth by centuries of sunrises, before spilling inside, washing over hides, over hair, over closed eyelids that begin to flutter awake. It's not sudden. It's never sudden here. Waking is not an interruption. It's an unfolding. The fire, tended in the last hours of night, is already awake. Its light is steady now, its heat pulled back from the flicker of survival to the steady heart of morning. Around it, the people rise, one by one, not from command, not from bells, but from the way light moves across skin, from the smell of warm ash, from the stir of others moving. Children rise last, mostly, their limbs heavy from dreams, their minds still half inside the caves of imagination. One boy opens his eyes and blinks slowly, then rolls toward the fire, curling again into a sibling's side. No one tells him to get up. There is no rush. The day will wait. The work will come. But for a moment longer, he is just warmth and breath. A girl, older, careful, sits upright, brushing bits of dried grass from her tunic. She stretches, then rises, walks quietly to the water skin, pours a bit into her hands, rubs them together. The motion is slow, practiced. She does it every morning, not because anyone told her to, but because it feels right. Clean hands for a new day. One of the women is already crushing dried herbs between stones. The smell rises, sharp, calming, familiar. A few children drift near, drawn not by duty, but by curiosity. She doesn't chase them away. She lets them sit. One leans forward, fingers twitching to mimic. She hands him a smaller stone and a leaf of his own. He works clumsily. She doesn't laugh. She nods. Outside, the sounds of birds echo through the trees, layered and light, like 100 tiny voices calling the world back into motion. The forest is already awake. The sky, a wide sweep of pale gold, promises heat later. For now, it is cool enough to work. A group of children heads to the stream with a skin bag and a bark basket. They know the path by heart. They walk in single file at first, then scatter as they near the water,
laughing softly, dipping hands, flicking droplets at each other. But they do not forget the task. They fill the bag carefully, testing its weight, tightening the seal. One girl scoops a small frog into her palm, shows it to the others, then sets it gently back into the reeds. The moment becomes a story before it ends. Back at the cave, the others begin their morning work. A man checks the traps near the tree line. A teenager sharpens a flint blade on a flat stone, tongue pressed against his lip in concentration. The scrape, scrape, scrape of stone against stone is rhythmic, grounding. He pauses often, not for doubt, but for precision. There is no hurry. The edge must be true. A child sits beside him, silent, watching. No one explains. No one teaches in the way we use that word now. But the child learns by watching hands, by listening to rhythm, by feeling the silence between actions and knowing it holds meaning. The fire is fed again, more out of rhythm than need. A girl tosses in a handful of twigs, then sits back, brushing her hands together like punctuation. She looks to the oldest man, the one with the eyes like stone and smoke. He's watching her. He nods. That's all. Later, the foraging party will leave. They'll take baskets and spears and short knives. They'll move into the trees with the confidence of those who've walked the same paths since before they were born. The children who are old enough will join. Not all, just the ones ready. Ready isn't about age, it's about seeing, about knowing which berries burn and which roots soften when boiled, about knowing how to walk quietly, not just because it's useful, but because it's respectful. Those who stay will work too, sorting dried leaves, tending to hide, stirring the soup that will become the meal. A girl sits at the edge of the fire pit now, watching the surface of the pot ripple. She isn't hungry yet. She just likes the way the bubbles rise, the way the smoke curls. A boy joins her, pokes a stick into the ash, draws lines. They don't speak, but they sit close. That's enough. The youngest of the children toddles between legs and hides and stone, carrying a smooth rock in both hands like a sacred gift. Someone lifts him gently when he wanders too close to the heat. He squeals, not from fear, but delight. The world is full, alive, safe. Not because it's soft, but because people notice, people care. By midday, the sun is climbing higher, casting light across the tops of the trees. The cave is still busy, but its pace is even, balanced. There is no race here, no noise for the sake of noise, only motion shaped by memory, shaped by need. And the children, in their own quiet ways, keep becoming. They are folded into the rhythm, not pushed, not pulled, but held, given time, given space, given presence. Tonight, they'll return again to the fire, again to the stories, again to the warmth of bodies resting close. But for now, the day is theirs, unfolding, alive, waiting.
The afternoon settles deep into the trees, thick with sun and sound. The air hums with insects, with the rustle of leaves touched by wind, with the quiet footfalls of people moving along familiar paths. Inside the cave and around its edges, the children continue their day, not in structured play or assigned roles, but in the fluid, quiet rhythm they've come to know since before they could speak. A group of them sits near the drying rack where strips of meat have been laid out, shaded just enough to preserve, but warm enough to dry. One of the older girls flips a piece, checking for texture, for color. She's not the one who placed it there, but she takes it on as hers. The work needs doing. Her hands know what to feel for. A younger child asks something, too quiet to hear,
but it ends in a question. The girl answers with emotion, showing, not telling. The smaller hands copy hers. Close enough. Elsewhere, a boy uses a stick to dig at the earth near a patch of loose stone. He isn't looking for anything specific, just movement. Maybe bugs, maybe a bone, maybe the edge of a secret. His friend joins him. No words, just presence. Together they dig and dig, piling little mounds, shaping a trench that means nothing and everything at once. They're building focus, endurance, patience. By now, the sun has passed its peak, shadows returning in long, slow lines stretching eastward. The forest is quieter, the birds less urgent, even the wind moves differently, dipping into hollows and curling up into trees instead of racing through. A hunting party returns early. They carry a small boar, bound and heavy, slung across a long branch. It took teamwork to bring it down. Timing, silence, understanding of movement. The children gather to watch as the adults lower the animal to the ground. No one rushes in, no one cheers. They watch. Eyes wide, feet still. There's a reverence in this moment, not just for the kill, but for the skill. The understanding it took to track it, to move as one body, to wait for the right moment. One of the men gestures, and a boy steps forward, the same boy who had watched the blades being sharpened yesterday. He's handed a small knife and a quiet word. His hands tremble, but he listens. He places the blade where he's shown. The cut is small, uncertain, but it's his. He has crossed a line today, not into adulthood, but into remembering. This is the first time he will see his own hands in the story. The meat is prepared as the sun lowers further. Smoke begins to rise from fresh kindling, the scent rich and earthy. The fire grows stronger again, ready to receive the evening. Children bring small bundles of herbs, of bark, of flavor, gathered from earlier in the day. Each piece added is a part of the meal, a part of them. No one owns the work. It belongs to the fire now. They eat with quiet gratitude, the children more focused than usual, watching the older ones, watching each other. The boy who helped with the cut gets the first piece. It's handed to him by the same man who guided his hand. The child chews slowly, thoughtfully. It tastes like belonging. Later, after the food is cleared and the fire dims to orange and gold, they gather again, not by rule, but by gravity. The story circle, the place where memory breathes. The elder doesn't begin the tale this time, a girl does. She's quiet at first, unsure, but the words come. A tale of something seen in the trees, a creature with antlers and eyes like polished stone. She's making some of it up. Everyone knows, but they let her speak. Let her shape it, because this is how stories are born, told, trusted, changed. When she finishes, the elder nods, then adds his own thread. A correction, a continuation, it doesn't matter. The circle accepts it. The story is shared now, and the children sit with it, feeling it grow inside them like fire in the belly. The stars appear earlier now. The air turns cooler. Children begin to lean on each other. One lies back and points up through the cave's mouth. "That star moved. It blinked," he says. The others laugh, not to mock, but to join, to notice. One says maybe it's not a star, maybe it's a spirit, maybe it's a hunter returned. No one says no. They lie there longer than usual, the fire smaller now, the circle looser. A girl begins to hum. One by one, others join. The song is not new, it's as old as the cave. But in their voices, it becomes new again. Tomorrow will be the same, and it won't be, because something is always changing. A story added, a child braver, a hand steadier on a blade. The cave holds it all, every step, every glance, every word that finds a place beside the fire. And now only one story remains. The final light of day folds quietly into the cave like a closing eyelid, slow, unhurried, full of meaning. Shadows are long now, but gentle, drawn across stone and skin in the same way memories draw themselves across the heart, without force, only presence. The fire, tended carefully after the evening meal, crackles low but steady. It knows this rhythm. It has lived it longer than any of them. Children are scattered across the floor, not in disorder, but in comfort. A few sit near the fire, heads resting on arms or knees, the flickering glow brushing their faces like a story waiting to be told. One boy drags a stick through the ash, drawing a shape he saw in the stars the night before. A spiral? A curve? A question? The elder sits quietly at first, watching the cave breathe. He listens, not just to the fire, but to the slow settling of the day, the final clicks and coughs, the fading laughter. Then he begins, not with a story, but with a name from long ago, a name of someone no longer here. The children sit up. They know what this is, the last story. It's not a tale of magic or monsters. It's a story of a mother who once sang to her child during a storm, of a hunt gone wrong and the courage it took to come home with nothing, of a child who once fell into the river and was pulled out by the smallest member of the band. It's a story they've heard pieces of before, but tonight it comes whole, wrapped in firelight, delivered slowly, carefully, like something sacred. The children listen differently tonight, not because they're older, though some are, not because the story is new, it isn't, but because they now understand it in their bones. These aren't stories about people. They are stories of them, of us. They see themselves in every echo, in every hand that reached, every foot that ran, every fire that was kept alive against the wind. One girl leans her head on her mother's shoulder. A boy curls beside his brother, their breathing slowly matching. A toddler mumbles something into the shoulder of a fur bundle and is rocked gently, without a word. The elder's voice grows quieter, as if the story is sinking, like a stone into water. He ends not with a final sentence, but with a silence so full it carries the weight of every word spoken before it. The fire pops once, and then the quiet holds. After a while, a child whispers, "Was that a true story?" And the elder smiles, not a wide smile, but a knowing one. He says only, "It is now." Outside, the stars bloom again, as they have every night. But tonight, they seem nearer, brighter, not because the sky has changed, but because the children have. They have spent 20 days wrapped in firelight and memory, 20 nights curled beside a living past, and now they carry it forward, not as students, not as followers, but as keepers.
One day they will tell these stories. One day they will rise before dawn to feed the fire. One day they will lift a child in the night and hum without knowing why. And that will be enough, because the story continues, not just in caves, but in kitchens, in quiet bedrooms, in long walks and late conversations, in every hand that reaches without being asked, in every voice that says, "I see you, I'm here." The fire dims, the last child drifts into sleep, and the cave, as always, remembers.